Yesterday, we heard about a variety of cargo security and operational challenges impacting the world of logistics. Businesses are being tested like never before, bringing untold and constantly changing demands to the resilience of global supply chains. So what's it like to be the front line of managing these risks, and what do customers now expect from their global logistics providers? Well, I'm delighted to say that our first speakers today are exceptionally well qualified to speak on this subject, because they represent a business delivering 1.7 billion shipments annually across the more than 220 countries and territories, and that business is DHL. DHL is also a major supporter of TAPA and holds the highest number of TAPA standard certifications globally. So who better to talk to us about the post-pandemic challenges facing logistics providers and the lessons of the last 2 to 3 years, as well as the impact of today's global economy and market trends. We'll also be hearing about the outlook for supply chains, how sustainability is a future qualifier to be selected as a provider of choice, and how DHL is preparing for the future. So, please join me in welcoming to the stage Sven Bosch, Vice President of Security Europe at DHL Express, and Christian Harupa, Vice President, Global Head of Life Sciences, Healthcare and Chemicals at DHL Freight. Gentlemen. Whatever you prefer.
It is what it is. Yeah. Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Amsterdam. Many familiar faces in the room, many new faces in the room, which is always nice. Let me start off by saying, in the old concept, I'll remove my sunglasses, won't be seeing anything if you see how dark this room is. In the old concept of this TAPA history, basically, the second day was never a good day to be on stage at 9 o'clock in the morning. Because this stage would basically be like the movie set of The Walking Dead, So I'm very happy with the new concept that we have the party on the second day, so that's very good. Let me tell you something. I was, to be honest, I wasn't supposed to be here. I'm not going to cry. Well, I was supposed to be here, but my idea was to sit there in the room together with you and watch the presentations here on stage and enjoy the breakout sessions and network a little bit and then eat bitterballs. That was my plan. But things turned out differently because our VP Ops, that was supposed to speak about the topics that I'm presenting today. I'll switch to the next slide. Couldn't attend last minute, so I contacted Torsten. I said, I'll fill the void. But you guys have to bear with me here today because I'm a security expert. I'm not an ops person. So I'm going to be speaking about a topic, market developments. You see the topics here on screen that are a little bit out of my comfort, or not out of my comfort zone, but are not my core topic, right? So I'm stepping into that. And Torsten told me, and Jamie as well, organizing these presentations, they told me that on 3 different occasions not to turn this presentation into a DHL sales pitch. I don't know why that is, but I have an assumption why that is the case. That might have to do with the fact that I'm Dutch, and the Dutch are naturally gifted with the ability to sell refrigerators to polar bears. I'm not particularly gifted in that aspect, so I'll leave it might not be that difficult to sell refrigerating units to polar bears in the near future, by the way things are progressing at the moment, right? But I'll leave that discussion to Christian, who's sitting here. We'll talk about sustainability in the following presentation on how we handle that within DHL. So he will continue the polar bear discussion. For those of you that know me, and it will be quite a few of you because I see so many familiar faces in the room, if you've seen presentations from me before, I don't present that often. Probably after this presentation, it will be another couple of years before I get invited again to do a presentation. But I'm not a precision tool, right? I'm not the precision screwdriver that you use to open up your mobile phone, and I'm the sledgehammer that you use to bring the wall down. And that's what this style of presentation is about as well. I like to keep things simple. If I can't explain what we are doing or what I am doing or what my team is doing to my girlfriend, I shouldn't be bringing that topic here on stage. So I tend to keep things simple. And the thing is with that, to every complex solution, the proverb says there is always a simple solution that doesn't work, but I'm a strong believer in the fact that there is always also a simple solution that does work, So that's my take on it. Those are the bitter balls. Watch out. Actually, I was disappointed yesterday. We had quesadillas and stuff. We're in Amsterdam. Torsten, where are the bitter balls? So let me tell you a bit of history. I'm talking about change, which is also the title of my presentation. But the actual topic of the presentation is the acceleration of change. That's the main topic for today. And I'm going to shed some light on what I think is happening currently in the world, where we are heading, and what we are doing as DHL to make sure that we're ready for the future. I started back in supply chain security back in 2010. Prior to that, I was a private consultant working for government and some contract work on security. So I've been in this industry for a pretty long time. In 2010, I started my job in Belgium. I worked for Schenker. And from there, I got my feet dirty. I worked in the mud. I started as an investigator. I audited parking places, like many of you in the room. And since there, I progressed throughout various roles. I stayed with Schenker for 11 years. And, to be honest, I thought I saw everything, right? I dealt with security issues in land transport, air and ocean freight, contract logistics. And, even I became a bit of an expert on arms and ammunition exports. And, I thought I saw everything. And then a guy called Jos came to me, who is my predecessor. He's still with Express, by the way. He's now moved to a global role. He'll be there tonight. He's actually the guy who sponsored the Man United shirts that are up for auction tonight. And he came to me and said, why did you come and work for Express? And after 11 years, I was, in my comfort zone, and I figured, why not? And I thought I knew everything, and I was very wrong, because then I went to Leipzig. So I had to put a sales pitch element in, right? What you saw here is the operation at Leipzig hub, which is the biggest hub that we have around the world. We have two hubs similar like the operation in Leipzig, in Hong Kong, and Cincinnati. To even call it a hub, Leipzig is a bit of an insult, because it's basically a city on its own, right? It's a warehouse that is 1 kilometer long. Everyone is on the payroll. So we have a staff of around 8,000 people working there. We have our own fire department, we have our own pilots on the payroll, we have our own truck drivers, we have our own aircraft maintenance, we have our own fire department, we have our own kerosene fuel station, you name it. It's a huge, huge operation. So was I wrong thinking I already knew everything? And the question that I want to answer today, and I'll explain where I'm going with this, is how do we get here within logistics? How do we get to a situation where we have operations like Leipzig Hub and Cincinnati and Hong Kong? And how did we get to a stage where we need something like that? Well, I always think that if you want to know what's going on today and you look at what's going to happen in the future, you also have to look at the past. And knowing the past a little bit is I take personal examples. I don't overcomplicate stuff. So I worked for Schenker for 11 years. The company was founded back in 1872. So 151 years ago. They had that 150-year celebration after I left. Maybe they postponed it a bit until I left to Express. Probably not. But a guy called Gottfried back in 1872 threw a couple shipments onto a steam train from Vienna to Paris, and that's where it started. Fast forward a couple of years, if we talk about DHL Express, DHL actually doesn't stand for Deutsche High-Speed Logistics. It's Delcy, Hillblum, and Lin, who are the three businessmen, the three founders of the company, three Californian businessmen that came up with the idea to start a courier business between San Francisco and Honolulu, Hawaii, mainly transporting legal documents and bill of ladings and so on. So they created a business model where they were able to custom clear goods whilst the goods were still in transit, which led to the fact that bananas or any perishable goods could pass on straight and wouldn't deteriorate while waiting for custom clearance. And the rest is history, right? So these two companies, Schenker, 151 years old, DHL, 1969, 54 years old. They had a lot of time to develop to where they stand today. And the interesting thing is, you can all go on the internet, look up a list of the biggest 100, 200, 500 companies in the world, by any metric, right? Look at EBIT, look at turnover over the last 1, 2 years, whatever. The astonishing thing, what you will see, is that many of these companies, and increasingly more so, didn't exist 20 years ago. These companies didn't exist at the change of the millennium. So how did we get to a situation where many large companies were able to develop and get onto a list where other companies had a 54-year or 150-year head start? It's because they seized an opportunity. But what is more interesting to look at is that for all those new companies on the list, there's tons of companies no longer on the list. And what these companies did not do is what you see here, is they did not adapt to the acceleration of change. And that's the main point for my presentation today. And I think that's something that we all have to take to heart. We have to be ready to adapt to change. And I'll give you two private examples as well. I think it's good to show you a little bit on how that change accelerated over the years and what pace we are currently looking at. So, here on the left, you see a picture of my grandfather. He died 2 years ago during COVID. For those of you that have lost people during COVID, it's terrible to say goodbye to someone, or not able to properly say goodbye to someone during COVID times. He lived to the age of 92, and this picture that you see here is 2 years before he passed away. He was still riding his motorbike at 90 years of age, can you imagine? But that's not the most astonishing thing. He had a bunch of bikes, and they were all classics, so you need spare parts to keep them running. And he would rely on companies that he knew, but they also didn't adapt to the acceleration of change. So he couldn't get the spare parts anymore for the people he knew. So at 80 years old, he had to change his operation. He had to change his logistics model to get his spare parts. So what he did was, he was 80 years old, he bought a laptop with Windows. Mind you, Windows for him was something that he only knew as a construction piece in his house made of glass. And he learned to access the internet. And up to 90 years of age, he was still able to keep up with modern technology. And mind you, he was born in the year that penicillin was invented. And I truthfully hope when I turn 90 years of age in 50 years' time, I will also be able to ride my motorbike in the third version of the metaverse. And if you don't know what the metaverse is, you better pay attention and catch up on technology. The second example here is something that I took from for those of you that have attended, it's something that stuck with me from a presentation that was on a TAPA conference back in 2017, the first and I believe up to now only global conference that we had in London. There was a guy there called Nick Gowing, and he gave a presentation on, I think the title was called Think the Unthinkable. You can still find it on YouTube. But he used an example of the concept of the bellboy. So this is not a picture from a horror movie. It looks a bit like that, but it's not. It's actually bellboy. So the guys basically pushing the buttons in the elevator. So elevators were invented in the late 1800s, and they first became common practice around the 1920s when buildings became higher and higher and higher, and elevators were just simply necessary, right? And the bellboy, the concept of the bellboy was there for the people to get accustomed to this new technology, because back in the 1920s, an elevator was like a spaceship. You get in, doors closed, doors opened. Fucking hell, you're in a completely new world, right? People were simply amazed. So it took a long time to adopt to that new technology, and that's why the bellboy was there. The bellboy was there until 1945. And then adoption happened, and people, felt comfortable in using the elevator. It took 25 years to adopt to the technology of the elevator. And the adoption didn't happen because people suddenly were used to the technologies, because the bellboys went on strike. So people were forced to use the new technology because they couldn't walk anymore to the 38th floor of these new high-rise buildings. So if we then look at the 25 years that we need to adopt to the technology of an elevator, then fast forward that to the situation that we had with COVID. And the speed at which, on a global level, the pharmaceutical industry was able to create a vaccine that helped us all. Unfortunately, not my grandpa, but a lot of people, probably a lot of people in this room as well. And also the adoption and the logistics, even considering the circumstances. It's something truly amazing. And I could use this opportunity to give a sales pitch about how DHL was able to transport 2 billion doses of vaccines, and the world has a little bit less than 8 billion people in it, living in it. So that basically means that 1 in every 4th person has some red and yellow running through their blood veins, but I won't do that because I promised not to turn this into a sales pitch. So now we get to the current state that we are in, and this is the key setting that I wanted to bring forward, right? The rate of change. The world we are living in today, so the post-pandemic world. Market disruption, yes, we all know this. I won't get into detail, but the market was completely disrupted from all aspects. And you would think that if shops are closed and people are at home, the only way to purchase products is to sit behind your computer and click stuff, that is the true e-commerce heaven, right? But it wasn't. It wasn't because many players in the e-commerce industry weren't prepared for the logistic issues that they were facing during COVID times. So there were only a few companies that did well, and there were many companies that couldn't deliver their services because they didn't have a plan. This market disruption also caused a situation where now logistics and planning and contingency is on everyone's agenda. Logistics is sexy again after COVID, right? Which is a fantastic development, but it's sad that we needed, the pandemic to get there. We were relatively lucky as DHL Express because, like I mentioned, we have our pilots on the payroll, we own our own planes, about 250 planes, 350 flights a day, or at night, basically. So we got through this well. For people, there were companies that relied heavily on outsourcing or third parties, it was a lot more difficult. Then we had to deal with shortages. We all had to deal with shortages. First the raw goods, then spare parts, then later on the staff issue. Affected us all in the industry. I still to today, I don't know where all the people went. It's still a mystery to me. If anyone has the answer, please reach out to me after one of the breakout sessions, because apart from people wanting to work part-time and maybe some young people that don't want a career because they want to be influencer, I can't figure out where all the people went. So yeah, and then we have this guy called Powell, who is the chairman of the Fed in the US, and he came up with this brilliant plan to raise the interest rates to combat inflation, which I believe to be the dumbest idea since the Lehman Brothers let that small bank of them collapse back in 2008. So actually this morning I read in the news that he temporarily stops raising interest rates. Raising interest rates, by the way, it means that lending money becomes more expensive because the interest rates go up, and therefore you have less spending. And if you have less spending, then theoretically prices should go down, so that reduces inflation, right? But what you're doing at the same time is you're strangling the economy, you're limiting further growth. So you can only sustain this for so long, right? So my honest prediction is that we're not out of this phase of recession yet. This recession that was caused by Powell and the ECB, the European Central Bank, that is basically following everything that the Fed is doing. And these decisions taken, they come into effect in society. You see the results after 6 months approximately. So it will still take some time before we're out of this recession. My personal prediction is that it's going to last at least until the second half of next year. Yeah, and then we have the war. In some places of the world, they refer to it as the special military operation, call it whatever you like. But it's a sad situation for the people in Ukraine. Huh? It's also a sad situation for many people in Africa because they're unable to bake bread because they don't have enough grain. It's also sad for certain car manufacturers in Europe because they had a single supplier strategy and a lot of parts couldn't be delivered, and so there were no cars coming off the production line. So this impacts everything, right? Then we have polarization, so activism and terrorism. This picture you actually see here is a plane from a probably businessman or rich individual on the Sylt in Germany. It's a bit of a jet-set island in the north of Germany. An activist thought it was a good idea to paint it orange. Well, I'm all in favor of painting stuff orange because I'm Dutch, we like orange. I think this is pure terrorism, right? It's not environmental activism, it's environmental terrorism. That's also something we, as a big player in the aviation industry, continue to battle against because it's a trend that will not go away. And then the interesting thing is, I mentioned all these bullet points, and then we have customer and consumer demands that are completely offset with the stuff I've mentioned. So we have all these difficulties, and then we have the consumer that during COVID got glued to his armchair and was just completely used to the concept of clicking stuff and expecting stuff to be delivered in 24 hours, or if you have Amazon Prime and you live in London, even in 1 hour. So there's a complete offset between market capability and customer expectation. How do you deal with something like that, right? Challenging. What's going to happen in the next 2 to 5 years? My personal prediction, if you go to a job interview these days and a recruiter asks you, where do you see yourself in 10 years? No sense in even answering that question. It's horseshit. The rate of change, the acceleration of change is going so fast that nobody has the crystal ball that will tell you what's going to be in 10 years. Things are just accelerating too fast. Long-term future, long-term strategy, max 5 years. So I'm going to be talking here, short-term future for me is 2 years, longer-term future is 5 years, and that's where it ends. The rest will just be assumptions. Staff shortages, I mentioned this before. It will be there to stay. If anyone has the answer, let me know. Geopolitical tensions, the war, but there's much more going on in the world. This leads to protectionism. Protectionism means that nation states are reluctant to ease legislation, so they're not opening up borders for the free movement of goods. This is causing a big issue for the logistics industry, right? So we're basically a bit strangled in that perspective. So we see that continuing. As if there's no political stability, it will be difficult to change legislation. Then we have the climate agenda, but the expert is sitting right next to me, so I'm not touching that point. Then we have wealth gap consequences. This is the Golden Gate Bridge. I've been to California 3-4 times in the past 5 years. The US is a holiday destination for me, I love it. And this is the old DHL Express colors, white and red. So this is an old picture. But if you're in California, you've been there a couple of times and you see it, the way things are progressing between the haves and the have-nots, it's appalling, right? After COVID, after the opioid crisis, it's so sad to see what is happening. But the people that have, they continue to protect their assets, right? They live in compounds, they put fences around their houses, they have security and so on and so forth. And as it happens to be, everything that happens in the US at some point will also come across to Europe, right? So count on it. That is something we have to deal with. Urbanization, same situation, right? Everyone wants to live in cities, especially the younger generation. What's the logistics concept, right? Many big manufacturers are already thinking about micro-fulfillment centers. So small, you see it with the quick delivery companies like the Gorillas of this world, right? What logistics concept do we have in the future to be able to deliver in cities where no vehicles will be driving around because it's completely pedestrian zones? It will all require new concepts and new security risks as well. We as DHL Express already started with a lot of bicycle hubs all around big cities in order to be prepared for that. Then we have the customization trend. So whether you're in Amsterdam or you're in, Vienna, in the main shopping street, you're just walking around, you can't really tell the difference in which city you're in, right? It's due to globalization. It's H&M, it's McDonald's, and it all looks the same. I mean, it's fine, they're global brands. I mean, that's just the way things are. But, well, maybe in Amsterdam you can still smell the weed, so you at least know that you're in Amsterdam, right? But everything looks the same. So if everything starts looking the same, the need for people to individualize themselves will grow. And this is a trend that started off with sneakers. The Tapa boys have really nice ones with the Tapa logo on it, but I don't have those yet. But you know, the Nike started with individualizing sneakers. You can put a name on it. You can basically choose the colors that you want and so on. Yeah, you have the nice DHL ones, yeah. And so this will be a trend that continues. And the interesting thing here is that the production of individualized items is completely different than mass production, which in turn also requires a completely different logistics setup to handle this supply chain, which also creates a completely different risk. So be aware of that. Precision medicine is a comment. This is also very interesting for those of you that don't know. There's many pharma people in this room, but precision medicine means that in the future, medication will not be generic. It will be based on your personal DNA. So you will be measured as a person based on your blood values and whatever, and the medication will be specifically created for you, so the medicine is most effective. This is also individualized production, which would require a completely different supply chain setup. Then cybercrime, trust me, that's going to be big. And it's going to focus on IoT. And it's going to focus on IoT in the sense that, you know, they're not going to attack mainframes or servers or anything like that. They're going to focus on the weak links in the system, right? They're going to the hand scanners in the warehouse that are not protected. Or even in your private home, if you have weighing scales or electric toothbrushes or connected to a Wi-Fi, those devices have very weak protection. And you need only one entry, and then basically you're fucked. So what are we doing as DHL Express to combat these issues? And I will tell you, and then I'll wrap up my presentation, what to do. I talk very fast, I need some water after this. Well, focus on the employee. I mentioned 2 times staff shortages. It's a big problem. So the people that you have, make sure that you keep them happy. And if you, let's say, automate some process in your company, make sure that you train the people for new roles, right? If you kick them out, you're not going to get them back. The people, by far, are, at least for DHL, our most valuable asset, right? We have to keep them. Keep the basics compliant. So, and this is something that relates to Tapa as well, right? So during COVID, we didn't have the opportunity to go out and about and do audits and check a lot of stuff. So we saw that after that, 2.5-year period, when we went out again, we saw a lot of, creative solutions implemented. Simply, the guy taking a piece of wood, sticking it between the emergency door, taking the magnetic contact off, so he could comfortably take a smoking break every 30 minutes. But, you just invested 2 million euros in security equipment in that warehouse that now became completely useless, right? So focus on the basics, especially after COVID. Understand your customer. And if you're, and I mean, this is easy. If you're in the B2C business, we do a lot of B2C business, so we know what the customer wants, right? But if you're in the B2B, the business-to-business market, then you have to understand your customer's customer as well. So reach out to your customer and have your customer tell you, what does your customer want? Because that will give you a pretty good indication on where your supply chain solution will have to head in the future. Work together and build partnerships. I think it's also a good point, because if you look at those, all those new companies on that list that I mentioned, 100, 200 biggest companies in the world, all these new companies that haven't existed 20 years ago, many of them were startups. And the startups, they don't stick to their own plan. They don't keep their company secrets in-house. They share with others. They know that other people can do things differently and better, and they work together in order to grow. So that's something that big companies, it goes against the DNA of a lot of big multinationals, right? But it's necessary for survival. Then we have the AI and robotics. I think it's self-explanatory. You have to adopt to new technologies. And the last point of this presentation, and then I hand over to Christian, is be flexible and be adaptable. And that sounds a lot easier than it is. Be adaptable. But to be adaptable to change, to the acceleration of change, requires you to keep your eyes open. And it's very simple, right? Like I said in the beginning, I'm not an ops guy, I'm a security guy. I'm basically doing a presentation that It's not, it's not my daily business. But if you just walk through the supermarket, you do grocery shopping, and you see that there's, whatever, no bananas. Why are there no bananas? Did they have supply chain issues with the bananas? Do they have production issues? Are the workers on strike? What is happening in the world? All to just keep your eyes open in daily life and ask those questions. Why can I get a guy to fix my house? Now, why is that happening? Do I not pay him enough? Are the guys not there? Do they have different projects? Do they work in new construction products? Whatever is going on, keep your eyes open, because that will tell you about where the world is heading. That's one of the main topics here. Just the picture, I'll explain that as well. That's something that we call as a slam lock. We had issues in certain countries where criminals would basically drill through the lock and then use some kind of stick to unlock the door from the inside. And that's also about being adaptable, right? It's, we have to change the locking system, be adaptable, talk to our supplier, understand what the customer wants, change the locking system, fix the problem. So, and be fast with it, right? So that's just one of the examples on how this works from a practical point of view. The next slide, it has a question mark on it, but questions are coming after the presentation. It was really a joy to speak here again, and probably I'll speak again in a couple of years. So thank you very much.
Good luck. Good luck. All right, hope you hear me. Yeah, good morning, also from my side. Thank you for having me here today. I will talk about sustainability as a future qualifier. Thank you for your presentation. I think good points in there that also might link to the polar bears, of course, but sustainability is a key topic. Most probably you've spoken yesterday about security, resilience, about the future of supply chain, future of sustainable supply chain, and also all that is related to logistics. And I think, and we believe within DHL that this is really a major topic. We really want to care about the environment. It's not too late, I would say, but I think everything is becoming faster and faster. We see the effects right now. And I believe that the climate change is or we within DHL believe that the climate change is the most difficult thing for humanity at the moment. Of course, we see also the war in Ukraine and Russia. I'm not sure how this will develop, but let's park this for a moment. So sustainability is the key topic, and I will give you some insights with my presentation, how we deal with that within DHL as a group to reduce the carbon emission and also to reduce the carbon emission for our customers. Caring about the environment is not anymore a nice to have, it's really mandatory. We train our people, all our people. I think we committed to train 80% of our people within the company. So, DHL, 600,000 people, white collars, blue collars. So it's a huge company across 220 countries. And it's not easy. So I'm also not really certified. I'm not an expert. You have seen, I think, from the intro that I'm taking care about life science, healthcare, so all the pharma topics, and also the chemical sector within DHL Freight. Mainly, I'm responsible for Europe, for 40 countries, but also in the US. So not an expert, but I think for this topic, because it's getting more urgent, we all have to become experts. And therefore, I hope this is interesting for you, and there's certain also link to the topic conference, because we talk about risk, and I think this is a huge risk for humanity, as mentioned earlier. Before we go into the presentation, I would like to ask you to take out your phone. We will run a short poll and ask the question, why does sustainable logistics matter in the context of security and resilience? Tough question, but you see there are some possible answers. We will do it by slide up, so if you scan the code, then you can participate. That would be great, and then we also see a little bit your view, and you see there's a little bit of provocative question in there as well. I will give you the context later on. So if you scan the code, then I think you can choose. If I'm not too fast, you have approximately 45 minutes. There are multiple choices possible.
45 minutes.
So we'll come back in a seconds. Yeah, see, the time is running.
Time is ticking. Yeah.
It's always difficult to anticipate what is the right timing here, but let's give it a time. And I think I have to speed up anyway with the presentation, so it took a little bit longer than expected, but that's fine. Good. I mean, the first one is clear, so that is part of the headline of my presentation. So running out of time, so let's see what the results are. 6 seconds, 5 seconds, 4 seconds, 3. Wow, okay, yeah, excellent. And I think that's really a mixed reply. And I think there's no right or wrong, but there was one question that is always a little bit difficult. Of course, as I mentioned, it's a future qualifier. We see this also in application meetings, that if we talk to new employees, especially the newer generations, they're really keen about to understand the sustainability program. So that's really getting important to attract the talents. So therefore, really, really important, mainly in white collar, but we also see it sometimes in the blue collar business for people working in the warehouse or the truck drivers. So they really want to know the technology behind that when it comes to sustainable fuel or the technology itself, electrifying trucks, for instance. Then, of course, the time to carbonize is now. Absolutely, I think this is a key topic. We can't wait anymore. We've seen, I mean, look what is happening already right now. So the earliest wildfires that we currently see in Canada, it's more intense than ever, and most probably it will be the worst season from a wildfire perspective ever in human history that will be recorded. So, I mean, you remember maybe also last year, Australia, sometimes we have seen the heat map, all the fires going on there. It's crazy. Then, of course, second, what we also have seen just recently in May, that the Western Arctic ice sheets are completely melt, irreversible, and I mean, this was expected couple of years later. So I think it's becoming faster and quicker. And also, what we all felt, the pandemic, the distribution of sickness is also related to global heating. And most probably also affected Corona, but we also see now a new virus, Nile virus is coming over. It just came to Europe. Not sure how this will be in effect or not, but also remember in 2019 when I was traveling back from China and also from Thailand, that the World Health Organization said early 2019, hey, this will never impact really Europe. And I think we learned more, so yeah. Good, okay, so yeah. And then revenue driver is something that I took a little bit out because, of course, if you change from conventional setup to sustainable setup, it will cost you more. And we also see the impact from a CapEx point of view. But, I mean, is not supposed to be making money out of that, driving revenue, and also having a profitability. I mean, at the end, we do something for the environment. We have to do it together. We can only succeed if we do it in a collaboration together as a logistics provider. I mean, we burn a lot of fossil fuels at the moment still, even if we've done something in the past. We always come from burn less, so optimization is the key. And then, I mean, of course, we have to burn, we have to deliver, we operate airplanes, then, of course, burn clean. So that's the approach that we take. It will cost more, but in collaboration with customers, with providers, with producers, we only can see it in a kind of collaboration. Become the provider of choice. I think it's a key element. We see this already now in tenders. I mean, I'm in road freight. We receive a lot of tenders. Also, the market is changing. More capacity is coming back to the market. And we see right now that they ask for the traditional lanes, really from A to B, in groupage, in part loads, and also for full truck loads. But also they ask, okay, how can we operate specific lanes, or what is also your recommendation from DHL? How can we operate that in a sustainable way? So that's a very interesting question, and that is really coming more often in the chemical industry, because of course they also fear more penalties in the future. Same, but also in the pharma industry, and they're really keen about that. Good. I think Bruce, you first. Very good. Thank you very much. I think you hit it right with the multiple answers. Thank you for all participating in this one. Good. What do we do within DHL? And I see, hopefully we get a little bit more of time because we also have a Q&A session later on. I mean, we committed with all business divisions to ambitious targets. We follow the science-based initiatives, and this is also how it got approved. You see, we have a clear roadmap until 2050 that we really want to reduce the carbon emission or the green gas house emissions to net zero by 2050. It's a long way and long time to go, but we already have some targets until 2030, and that's less than 7 years from now. So we want to spend 7 billion, so really 7 billion in order to reduce the emissions significantly. And here I've scope 1 and 2, and I hope you're familiar with the scope 1, 2, and 3. We want to reduce within DHL, and of course then also for our customers, the scope 1 and 2 for us by 42%, so this is really massive, and this is until 2030. And the scope 3 by 25%. Scope 1 is the direct impact. Scope 2 is the indirect. So first one is the production. The second one is maybe if you lose electricity, and the third one is related to up and downstream of your supply chain. If there are more questions, I think we can answer that later on. Good. Yeah, but we already started the journey just I mean, you can always commit to something, but it's also important what we have achieved. In 2007, we said, okay, no, in 2008, we said, okay, we want to save 10% of the overall emissions within DHL, and we achieved that in 2021 already. So I think that was the first success. Then we thought, okay, especially for the last mile delivery, pickup and delivery, it makes sense to electrify the fleet, but there was no manufacturer out there really supporting us. And then we worked together with a startup company. We owned the company. You remember Street Scooter was the name. So we really became a kind of e-vehicle pioneer in this area. Was it successful? I think at that time, yes, of course. I mean, now we see there are other and most probably better vehicles in place, and we are not a car manufacturer. But yeah, it's also good to have this kind of pioneer attitude and start with pilots, and this is also what we have to do with customers. It's the first step is the most crucial one and the most difficult one. Yeah, and I think also then in 2020 we already achieved a 30% reduction compared to 2007. So I think we are doing quite well, and most probably will also achieve this target here as well. It's difficult. I mean, we just heard, we have seen the Leipzig hub. We have 2 more hubs around the world with the big planes. We operate more than, 250 planes. I know that we have own planes in place, the big ones, roughly 140 planes. And of course, the business will develop, and until 2050, most probably we'll have 400 airplanes. Own operated, of course, a lot of subcontracted airplanes as well. So how do we want to do that? I think the first topic is really, and again, as I mentioned, this will be all the topics that we do for the whole company. Until 2030, we committed to use 30% sustainable fuels for air and ocean, for also then all the trucks that we operate on the street. Then electrify 60% of the fleet. We already had a lot of vehicles. Also by 2030, so there's a lot of investment behind that. And then all our buildings, including office buildings, to become climate neutral. Wherever it's possible, use solar, use sustainable heating, especially in the countries a lot of sun, like Spain, like Portugal, Italy. We use the photovoltaic or the solar panels in order to produce energy, especially I'm in life science and healthcare for the cold chain equipment in order to produce energy, and then we call it also then cool with the sun. I think this is the sustainable portfolio that we have in place. So you see, I'm getting faster and faster. The time is running in order to catch up a little bit. This is the huge product portfolio sustainability program within DHL. We call it Go Green Plus. Here you see a lot of in-setting topics for the business divisions. We have the P&P, so the Post and Parcel division. We have the Express division. We have Global Forwarding, especially with air and ocean services. Freight division, so that is the division I'm working for, from really groupage part loads and the full truckloads, mainly within Europe, also a little bit in the US. We have own equipment in Sweden, so, and most probably also have to go for own equipment, especially when it comes to sustainability, also in other countries. And then, of course, supply chain, all the warehousing, picking, packing, and the fulfillment centers and e-commerce solutions. I will not go into all the details. Of course, we have our salespeople that look for proper solutions, look also for customized solutions, tailor-made solutions with our clients in order to have this huge variety of offering and to meet the targets and commitments that we have done. There's a very nice pilot project, is a nice reference. I'm not sure if you have seen it, is Alice, called Alice. This electric plane, we ordered already 12 planes. There's one let's say, prototype that is running properly. Most probably we'll receive the planes then by 2027. The range is 500 kilometers approximately, with a payload of 1.2 tons. I mean, in order to fly 1 hour, you have to charge it 30 minutes. That's, I think, it's very good. But of course, it's more like a showcase, with all the airplanes that we operate in today, I think the sustainable air fuel is the main topic, because this can operate in a niche area. We will use it in the US for short distances, but you know, we have seen the range is pretty limited, and also the payload. But I think I really like it. It's giving the right messages, and this is also what we are looking for, working with a lot of startup companies, working with our clients, working with clients in a group, the SMI, for instance, where a lot of customers really try to get their volumes together in order then to come up with some very nice solutions. And this is, I mean, also what you've seen is valid always for 220 countries. So it's not that we say we just do it in one part of the world. We will do it everywhere with all our 600,000 employees. Yes. So then technology roadmap, and I think this is okay. We spoke about that we want to have electrify, especially for pickup delivery, 60% of our fleet until 2030. Then also the sustainability fuel, 30% until 2030. And this relates to 3 billion in investments only on those two topics. Yeah, I think it will give us the right leverage in order to achieve our targets. And how we do this, I mean, we know that all the products and portfolio you see we have interim solution, we have long-term solutions. This is a little bit of technology roadmap until 2050, but we know, I mean, there will be so much more development. It's very difficult to foresee the future. You said just two years of planning. I think the same. So we will see that the development will be even faster and faster, because the need is there, the demand is there, and also companies are willing more and more to invest, and technology solutions will come. Just to what we do in road freight, because I'm working in road freight, and also in the background you see a little bit the truck that we operate in Sweden. It's an electric truck. We use that from a shuttle transportation together with Volvo. The investment for a truck is extremely high. It's operating fine in Sweden because it's flat. Might be a different story if you talk about Switzerland or Austria. But also you always have to consider that you need to have in place also the loading stations. Otherwise, the, let's say, range will be only half. So it's a 60-ton truck. It's going up to 380 kilometers. And it's running fine. So it's a very nice project. We also successfully tested and completed tests with hydrogen trucks. If this is the future, I'm not really sure. Some people say yes, others no. So we will see. Then we also will be deployed in Q4 or Q1 next year together in a cooperation with Shell, a 2-cell electric truck. And then also we are testing 2 hydrogen combustion engine trucks together with BMW, and there are more initiatives also with H2 Hall, Iveco, I think is also part of that, and BMW. And I mean, a lot of things that are going on. We get the push from the customers. We work with startup companies. We have all the innovation centers around the world, and working continuously on this topic. Good. I think for road freight, or then here also we talk about rail freight, that is a very good leverage in between to really move goods from road to rail. Usually, I think a rule of thumb is that you can save approximately 7 to 8 times emissions if you transport on rail. Of course, including also then the pre-carriage and post-carriage if you do it in a kind of sustainable way. Some people say maybe it's 80%. Let's see. We operate as a DHL Freight already right now on an annual base 3,500 trains. We committed to have until 2030 10% of our whole road freight spent on rail. We're doing currently 6 billion, and we are a smaller group or part of the group. That will be then shifted to rail. So interesting number. So What else? We just opened a new lane from Pattberg to Duisburg and the other way around. But of course, the infrastructure is also limited here. You have a lot of regulations, especially in Germany. You say the infrastructure is very weak. Of course, we are having this kind of cooperation also with Deutsche Bahn. But I believe also the priority is still on the passenger train. I mean, this is how you make the money, and the cargo train is having less priority. But yeah, we work on that, and with the sustainability topic, I think we will also succeed. We even think about the yellow trains. We also operate a lot of internal business, so the parcel business, the express business with some trains, especially from the eastern countries, and that's working fine. And we have also this vision of the yellow trains going around. Yeah, constraints, I mentioned that. Also in Sweden, then you have a different track size. That gives you a lot of headaches. But we also see, I mean, in order to sustainable, you can put approximately 40 trucks on a train. You also see some very nice initiatives, cargo beamer, where you can put also the train, the truck and the trailer on the train. Lead time is maybe a difficult topic because the train goes when the train goes. Now, I can talk about that even longer, but in the matter of time, we'll skip that. And with that, yeah, I'm coming to the end of my presentation, and this is our approach to net zero until 2050. This is our mission. I hope that was interesting for you. Let's use the time later on to network and to talk about that. I can give you also more perspective on the road freight part. And with that, I think we come, maybe if we still have time for Q&A. Yeah.
Good.
Can I see? You can stay there if you want.
No, go ahead. Take the comfortable one.
Found the key.
I'll take those too. No? Great. Well, thank you both very much, gentlemen. I'm not going to open it to the floor because I know you are both around today, so people can meet up with you in the networking breaks. But just want to ask you both a quick question before we move on to the next session. Sven, what would you say is the main security concern for DHL Express today?
The main security concern for DHL Express today, if we look at loss figures and we look at the way things are progressing, we're suffering, I think, a lot of stuff that everyone is suffering in the industry. So you have your losses, you have your problems at parking locations, you got your insider threats and so on. But I think a trend that continues to develop to the wrong side is something which we call delivery disputes and fraud. So people basically manipulating QR codes and shipment labels and sending empty boxes back of products they've ordered to manufacturing origin in order to, get their money back for the products they already ordered. That's a trend that is developing very fast. That's a big problem for the industry.
And how are you combating that? Sorry.
Yeah, and I think another security issue is, and that's more in the long future, is it was on one of the slides as well. It's population growth. So if you look at a little bit longer period of time, you will see that the population growth in Africa is going to be completely exploding by the year 2050. But at the moment, the infrastructure is crap. So it's a big risk in the future doing business there. There really needs to be a quantum leap in infrastructure development in Africa in order to keep up with the level of service that we currently bring in other parts of the world. Yeah.
Thank you. And Christian, is it feasible, would you say, for clean energy and electric mobility to be adequately meeting both present day and future demands?
Yeah, it's a complex question. I mean, you have seen, and I touched on that. We try currently. I mean, look first at efficiencies to burn less, and then if we have to burn, because we have to burn really in order to bring something from A to B, then to do it in a kind of clean way. And there are different options right now. The technology is pretty limited, as we have seen, and as you already know. But it's really this kind of first step, and we have to do something. And therefore, I think there's something we can do right now. Even offsetting is something that can help. We have it sometimes incorporated in our products like Euro Rapid, where we, of course, make the right selections of offsetting, because that counts most probably not for the SPTI, so it's not helping us in order to achieve our target, but it's helping most probably the environment. And then, of course, also look into the future, develop something together with our suppliers. Yeah, we will see what are really the future technology. But I mean, we can't really wait. We have to do something right now, and this is maybe the bridge from what we can do. Sustainable. We have seen this for air and ocean, or particularly for air. That the only choice at the moment is the sustainable air fuel. How is this generated? How we produce that? Can we commit to volumes here? And we have done this. And then, of course, also more companies are willing to invest and to support this topic. Yeah. But of course, there's way more to talk about that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And as I said, anyone can catch up with you today. You'll both be around and ready to have a chat.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you both very much. And
Thank you very much.
have a good networking break with everybody. I'm
Thank
sure
you very
there'll be
much.
Okay.
lots of
Thanks a
questions.
lot.